In the history of Chinese Revolution, cadres going south was an important strategic action, and a special group of cadres going south was born from this. In 1948, the People's Liberation Army won victories on various battlefields one after another with overwhelming momentum. At this time, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China began to think about another problem. With the continuous expansion of the liberated areas, what we are facing is not only the liberation of cities and regions, but also the management of cities, the appeasement of the masses, the regulation of order, and the improvement of the economy. Develop. For the People's Army, which has been surrounded by war and smoke, this is a brand new and unfamiliar battlefield. In order to play the same triumphant song on this battlefield, the party Central Committee made a strategic deployment of selecting young cadres from the liberated areas to go south to support the construction of the new liberated areas. In September 1948, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China held a Politburo meeting in Zibepo, known as the September Meeting in history. At the meeting, Mao Zedong proposed, in the third year of the war, 30,000 to 40,000 lower-level, middle-level, and high-level cadres must be prepared, so that when the army advances in the fourth year, these cadres can advance with the army and manage about 50 million troops in an orderly manner. Newly opened liberated areas with a population of 100 million. According to the spirit of the September Conference, on October 28, 1948, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China made the resolution on the preparation of 53,000 cadres, allocating the required cadres to North China, East China, Northeast China, Northwest China, and Central Plains. The cadres and the minimum number of cadres who are mainly responsible for various tasks at all levels are stipulated, and the requirements are required to be included in proportion. At the same time, it is required that the cadres transferred from all regions should form a complete shelf of the district party committee and be transferred out as a whole. In late May 1949, when Chen Yi took over Shanghai, the soldiers slept on the streets in order not to disturb the people. We, the cadres going south, are going to leave the in-laws home and go to the in-laws home. We strive to win the in-laws home to be a good daughter-in-law. The sedan chair will see you off, and we will walk on two legs. Before the departure, all districts basically held a farewell party, and many officials in southern Hebei were deeply impressed by Wang Renzhong, secretary of the party committee of Nangxia district, who was full of revolutionary optimism. The biggest task of the South cadres is to effectively take over the grassroots regime of the Kuomintang and transform it so that it becomes a reliable foundation for the new China. City takeover is a brand new challenge for most cadres going south. With strict discipline, they resolutely implement the various policies of the party Central Committee. Every time they went to a city, the cadres going south first set up a military control committee to implement military control in accordance with the policy of each according to the system, top-down, intact, first connected and then divided. Representatives from all walks of life and workers, youth, women, and other mass organizations and groups strive for the support of people from all walks of life. While guiding the orderly development of work in the new area, the cadres going south must also ensure the supply of materials for the PLA troops still fighting in the southwest and southeast. They work tirelessly to mobilize among the common people. Farmers from all over the country pushed their hands on their shoulders and sent grain and fodder to special grain stations set up by local governments. During the advancement of the War of Liberation, defeated Kuomintang soldiers, secret agents, and habitual bandits ran amok in some places, seriously undermining social stability and economic recovery. Some county magistrates and cadres sent by the new regime are often forced to hide in bunkers and sleep with machine guns at night. On the evening of October 30, 1949, an urgent telegram was sent to Yang Fan, deputy director of the Shanghai Municipal Public Security Bureau. The content of the telegram is, according to reliable information, Taiwan Secret Service Agency sent Lu Quanday to lead and Pinghui and Wang Qin to arrive in Shanghai to carry out the task of assassinating Mayor Chen Yi. Ace assassin. At that time, it had been less than half a year since Chen Yi took over Shanghai. Although Lu Quanday and his accomplices were quickly captured, dangers like this are common. In order to change the situation as soon as possible, with the strong support of the local people, the cadres going south formed People's Armed Forces, such as militias, police, etc., and even relied on a large number of regular troops to carry out the struggle to wipe out bandits. After the banditry was eradicated and the social order in the countryside was stabilized, the cadres going south began to get in the dark again, going to villages and households to organize farmers to carry out land reform. A series of measures to restore and develop production have brought a new look to the city, and the Kuomintang reactionaries clamored that the arrogant prophecy that the Communist Party can't control the city is self-evident. Now, 70 years have passed, the south-going cadres who were in their prime are gray-haired old men, and more south-going cadres have no chance to set foot on the hot land of their hometown and hear the familiar accent again, but they with life choices, I witnessed and experienced the unforgettable years of the establishment and development of the Republic. Cadres Going South is a special and dazzling historical revolutionary group that emerged with the development of the political and military situation in the late period of the War of Liberation and the early days of the founding of New China. Mobilizing and organizing a large number of cadres to go south with the army is an important strategic deployment of the party Central Committee and Chairman Mao Zedong to fight across the Yangtze River and liberate the whole of China. As an old liberated area, from the second half of 1948 to the second half of 1949, Shaanxi organized a large number of local cadres to go south with the army. It is mainly divided into three parts, namely, Taihang and Taiyu cadres went south to Fujian, Jinsong cadres went south to Hunan, Jinsui cadres went south to Sichuan and Zhejiang. 1. In December 1948, the North China Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China decided to send a group of capable cadres to the south of the Taihang and Taiyu district party committees. At the beginning of 1949, a total of more than 4,100 southward cadres arrived in Wuhan County, Hebei Province, and formed the Nangxia District Party Committee. The external designation was Chinese People's Liberation Army Changjiang Detachment, referred to as Yangtze River Detachment. In July, the Yangtze River Detachment arrived at Xintang, Zhongshan County, Zhejiang Province, and joined the East China cadres led by Zhang Dingchen. The southward cadres of the Yangtze River Detachment were all under the unified leadership of the Fujian Provincial Committee of the Communist Party of China with Zhang Dingchen as the secretary, and went to Jian'ou, Nanping, Fuan, Minho, Xinjiang, Longxi and other areas to carry out work. When the Yangtze River Detachment entered Fujian, the people and the land lived together, and the language was not clear. Under the leadership of the Fujian Provincial Committee of the Communist Party of China, they worked together with local cadres in East China, cadres who were transferred to work, and cadres from the southward service group to collect food and funds, support the front line, suppress bandits, fight hegemony, and together completed various tasks such as reducing rent and interest, land reform, etc. This task led to the improvement of social order in Fujian. 2. Around February 1949, the three major battles of Liaoshen, Huihe, and Pingjin ended victoriously, and the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China issued the instructions on dispatching and preparing cadres to cross the Yangtze River with the army. The North China Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China decided to mobilize and organize a large number of cadres to go south to support the construction of political power and production recovery in the new district, with the Jinsong District Party Committee as the mainstay. The Jinsong Nangxia Working Group is the party committee of Jinsong Nangxia District, with Wu Guang as its secretary, Zhou Xiaozhou as its deputy secretary and head of the propaganda department, Niu Ying'an as director of the civil administration office, and Zhang Jiancheng as its deputy director. The district party committee is equipped with 6 prefectural committees, 36 county committees and more than 200 district-level teams. All levels are equipped with trade union, peasant movement, youth, women, and armed cadres, as well as medical, cooking, communication and security personnel. More than 3,000 people. In March, the Jinsong Nangxia District Party Committee assembled in Shijiazhuang. After studying the documents of the second plenary session of the 7th Central Committee of the party, organized mobilization and reorganization, visited coking factories, textile factories, and small pot factories, each cadre had an intuitive understanding of cities and industrial workers. In order to adapt to the war environment and facilitate the march, the Southward Working Group implemented a military organization on the way southward, and each team implemented a number system. In early May, the Southward team began to set off in batches. After a long and difficult march, they entered Hunan in August, September, and October. Hunan is an old revolutionary base area with a glorious revolutionary tradition. Due to the long-term occupation of the Kuomintang, the situation here is very complicated. The local people say that there are 3 mores here. First, there are many bandits. Second, there are many Kuomintang secret agents. And third, there are many Kuomintang veterans. Faced with this situation, the cadres going south have no fear. After entering the new area, they first set about establishing political power at all levels, quickly resumed production, and served the front lines of supporting Guangdong, Guangxi, and the Great Southwest. At the same time, pay close attention to eliminating bandits and hegemony, maintain social order, and establish a normal working order. From then on, they took root in Hunan and took on the glorious task of consolidating the new regime and building a new Hunan. 3. In March 1949, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China made the decision to enter Sichuan from the Qinling Mountains. Local cadres were transferred from the Jinsui liberated area to form a southward working group to cooperate with the 2nd Field Army to enter the southwest from the northern line and open up the Chuankang New area. By the beginning of July, more than 3,600 cadres had been transferred from various places to the Shaanxi Sui Sub-Bureau, and most of them were county-level cadres. The party school of the Jinsui Sub-Bureau uniformly organizes training for cadres going south, learning important party documents and policies for taking over the city. From late October to early November, cadres from Shaanxi and Suizu bid farewell to the base areas and headed for Sichuan in batches. The cadres who went south to Sichuan and the students of the cadre school were organized into 5 echelons according to the system, plus 3 guard regiments, with a total number of about 15,000 people, directly under the leadership of He Long, Li Jingquan, and others. Later, the Chinese People's Liberation Army Northwest and South Mission was renamed Chinese People's Liberation Army Northwest Sichuan Mission, abbreviated as Northwest Sichuan Mission. After the comrades of the Northwest Sichuan Working Group entered Sichuan, they were successively assigned to work in Northern Sichuan, Western Sichuan, Chengdu, and Zhejiang Province. They fought on the front line of taking over and resuming production in the city, carried forward the fine tradition of hard work and close contact with the masses, quickly stabilized social order, and restored and developed production. As a special group produced during the Revolutionary War years, the cadres going south made indelible contributions to the victory of the People's War of Liberation and various construction undertakings after the founding of New China. In the early days of the founding of the People's Republic of China, 100,000 cadres who went south. This article is excerpted from Party History Wen Yuan Issue 02, 2008, author, Yan Feng and Wang Ziyawai. The Southern Cadres column is a special and dazzling historical revolutionary group that emerged in the historical context of the development of the political and military situation in the late period of the War of Liberation and the early days of the founding of the People's Republic of China. In the torrent of the People's Liberation Army's liberation of the whole of China, in order to take over and consolidate our party's new regime and support the construction of the vast new liberated areas in the south, according to the resolution of the Party Central Committee, various provinces have dispatched a large number of party and government cadres to go south with the People's Liberation Army from all walks of life. As a result, tens of thousands of party and government cadres and members of the Communist Youth League braved the lingering smoke, divorced their wives and left their homes, and went to the newly liberated areas south of the Yangtze River to fight for the establishment of the new Chinese regime on the new battlefield. Made an indelible and major historical contribution. Won the historical context of overall military victory. In the early days of the War of Liberation, the nationalist government controlled most of China's strategic resources, and received substantial military and economic material assistance from the United States. Its armed superiority over the People's Liberation Army was obvious. However, due to the fact that the Kuomintang was unreasonable and lacking support and was unpopular, especially the support of the broad masses of peasants, it was defeated steadily on the battlefield. In June 1947, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China determined the policy-making policy of the National Strategic Counteroffensive. Immediately, Liu Bachan and Deng Xiaoping commanded the Shaanxi Hebailiu Field Army to advance to the Dabi Mountains, starting the mission of the People's Liberation Army to switch to a strategic offensive. The East China Field Army led by Chen Yi and Su Yu, as well as the Chenggang and CFUZ Field Corps also attacked the Central Plains in a large scale. The 3 teams formed a pin formation and galloped across the Central Plains. War situation. At the same time, the Shaanxi Hebei Shandong Henan Central Bureau and the East China Bureau immediately mobilized nearly 3,000 party members and cadres to form a southward detachment to support the construction of political power in the Dabi Mountain liberated area. In April 1948, the cadres who went south from Shandong formed the Central Plains Detachment of the People's Liberation Army 1. After learning and intensive training at the camp school where Chen Yu was the principal, they followed the PLA to the south and opened up new liberated areas in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Anhui, Jiangxi and other regions. Immediately afterwards, the war continued into its 3rd year. The People's Liberation Army and the Kuomintang Army launched a strategic decisive battle, namely the three major battles of Liaoshen, Huaihe, and Pingjin. The three major battles lasted 142 days from September 12, 1948 to January 31, 1949. They fought for uprising, surrender, acceptance of peaceful reorganization and annihilation of 144 regular army divisions and 29 irregular army divisions of the Kuomintang, totaling more than 1.54 million people. The main military forces that the Kuomintang relied on to maintain its rule were basically eliminated, laying the foundation for national victory too. After the three major battles, the Kuomintang government was no longer able to carry out effective strategic defense. Its political and economic centers, Nanjing, Shanghai and other places, were also under the direct threat of the People's Liberation Army. Whether politically, economically, or militarily, the national government was facing a desperate situation. On the one hand, after the Liaoshen campaign, the entire northeast was declared liberated. The Huaihe campaign liberated East China and the central plains north of the Yangtze River. It can be seen that the whole country is on the eve of the victory of the revolution, and the liberation of the whole of China is just around the corner. Therefore, the victory of the three major battles not only laid a solid foundation for the victory of the People's Liberation War across the country, but also cleared the military obstacles for the formation and takeover of the southward cadres column. Therefore, cadres southward was put on the agenda. On the other hand, with the increasing expansion of the liberated areas, the effectiveness of the backbone of party members and cadres has rapidly emerged. Importing party members and cadres to these newly liberated areas to consolidate and build a new regime has become an important task that cannot be ignored in the process of national liberation. In the newly liberated areas, the bandits and tyrants have not yet been wiped out, and the remnants of the Kuomintang are still fighting back frantically. The harsh situation in the newly liberated areas also calls for the glorious duty of party members and cadres. In addition, on April 21, 1949, Mao Zedong and Zhu De issued the order to march to the nation, calling for the People's Liberation Army to march across the south of the Yangtze River and liberate the whole of China. The battle of crossing the Yangtze River started immediately, and the million-strong army of the People's Liberation Army quickly and successfully broke through the last Yangtze River defense line that the nationalist government painstakingly managed. On April 23, Nanjing was liberated, announcing the fall of the nationalist government. The basic first step in the construction of the new Chinese regime has been completed. Therefore, after studying and reorganizing, the column of cadres going south quickly marched into the southwest with the army, and began to take over and carry out activities to consolidate and build the new regime. 2. The political situation and the historical context of the Party Central Committee's resolutions. During the War of Liberation, when the People's Liberation Army and the Kuomintang Army were fighting fiercely on the battlefield, the People's Democratic and Patriotic Movement was also flourishing in the Kuomintang-controlled areas. All social strata, including the workers and peasants, the petty and middle bourgeoisie, enlightened gentry, democratic patriots, etc., all united around the leadership of the CCP, thus forming a second front, which made the Kuomintang government even more isolated. The Second Front not only favorably supported the overall victory of the People's War of Liberation, cooperated with the People's Liberation Army to carry out the work of taking over cities, but also accumulated revolutionary forces, trained cadres, and made them become strategic decisive battles and various undertakings of nation building. Backbone Strength 3. At the same time, as early as the eve of the strategic decisive battle between the People's Liberation Army and the Kuomintang Army, in order to welcome the political situation of national victory, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China held an enlarged meeting of the Political Bureau in Zibepo, Pingshan County, Hebei Province from September 8 to 13, 1948. History called the September Meeting. The meeting analyzed the political situation of the National War of Liberation, formulated a series of strategic tasks and strategic decisions to win national victory, and discussed the task of seizing national power requires our party to quickly and systematically train a large number of people who can manage military, political, cadres working on the economy, party affairs, culture, and education. Therefore, the Party Central Committee required all departments to quickly organize and train 30,000 to 40,000 cadres to march with the army, so as to take over the newly liberated areas in an orderly and steady manner. On October 28, the Party Central Committee made the resolution of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China on the preparation of 53,000 cadres based on the principles and policies determined at the September meeting. The resolution pointed out The rapid development of the war has urgently brought the preparations for the cadres needed by the national regime to our party. If our party lacks this preparation, it will certainly not be able to adapt to the needs of the development of the war, and our party will be in a passive position. 5. Based on past experience in developing new districts, the resolution believes that in the future the newly liberated areas will need a total of 53,000 cadres at the 5 levels of the Central Bureau, district party committees, prefectural committees, county committees, and district committees, as well as various cadres in major cities about. These cadres are divided according to the nature of their work, including military work, confidential party work, mass organization work, economic work, education, and public opinion work, etc. The resolution also instructed, among the 53,000 cadres, the North China Bureau is responsible for organizing and training 17,000 cadres, the East China Bureau is responsible for mobilizing and training 15,000 cadres, the specific planning of 15,000 cadres, and so on. The preparations for the 53,000 cadres are completed in 2 phases, and they need to undergo intensive training in the party school, and they must be fully prepared politically, ideologically, and organizationally. On New Year's Day in 1949, Xinhua News Agency published Mao Zedong's New Year's message carrying the revolution through to the end, pushing the final victory of the War of Liberation to a climax. On February 8, the Central Military Commission issued an instruction turning the army into a work team, requiring that the army is not only a combat team, but mainly a work team. All military cadres should learn to take over cities and manage them. 4. On June 11, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China officially issued the arrangements for the preparation of 38,000 cadres and issued it to the central bureaus for implementation. Therefore, in the historical context of the strategic deployment of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, the central bureaus quickly mobilized a large number of party and government cadres to form a column of cadres going south to follow the army southward, effectively supporting the overall victory of the National Liberation War. 3. Formation of the Southeast China Cadre Column. In order to implement the resolution of the Party Central Committee and support the construction of the new liberated areas in the southwest, Shandong, Shaanxi, Henan, Hebei and other provinces urgently mobilized, organized, and trained local party and government cadres, and formed a column of cadres going south. Amid the clarion call of fight across the Yangtze River and liberate the whole of China, the columns of cadres going south marched southward along with the field armies from all walks of life, and went to the new battlefield to receive, manage, and build some newly liberated large and medium-sized cities in the south, consolidated the new political power. It was in such a historical context that the Southeast China Cadre Column was formed in due course. In the winter of 1948, the leaders of the strategic areas of the East China Bureau held a meeting in Minjiazhuang, at the junction of Linghu County and Yuta County. One of the main discussions was the organization and arrangement of the deployment and transfer of cadres to work with the Army South. On December 25, the Central Committee of the East China Bureau issued the instructions on the implementation of the Central Committee's resolution on the preparation of 53,000 cadres. The instructions pointed out, due to the current shortage of cadres, especially middle-level and high-level cadres, in Central China, the central decision to prepare 15,000 cadres will be entirely in Shandong. The instructions required that the transfer of 15,000 cadres to the south should be prepared in 2 phases, the first phase at the end of December 1948, with 3,000 people transferred, the second phase at the end of February 1949, with 12,000 people transferred. The instructions also made specific allocations for the implementation of the transfer of 15,000 cadres. Shandong Central and Southern District is equipped with 1 set of district party committee level, 10 sets of prefecture level committee level, 40 sets of county and district committee level, and a total of 3,680 cadres were transferred. The district is equipped with 1 set of district party committee level, 7 sets of prefectural committee level, and 42 sets of county and district committee levels, with a total of 3,650 cadres. Bohai District is equipped with 1 set of district party committee level, 5 sets of prefectural committee. 3,456 cadres were transferred. Jinan City is equipped with 1 set of district party committee level, 2 sets of prefectural party committee level, and 5 sets of county and district party level, with a total of 576 cadres transferred. Qinggui Special Zone is equipped with half set of prefectural party committee level and 5 sets of county and district party level. A total of 404 cadres were transferred. Bafang City was equipped with 3 sets of county party committees, and a total of 225 cadres were transferred. There are 1,475 urban work cadres, totaling 3,009. These transferred cadres became the later Southeast China Cadre Column. After receiving instructions from the East China Bureau, the party committees of various districts in Shandong carried out active mobilization propaganda and planning. All county and district committees held cadre meetings to organize party members and cadres to study the instructions and relevant documents and resolutions of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China and the East China Bureau on the transfer of cadres to the south with the army, and to carry out extensive political and ideological mobilization and education. In December 1948, the Bohai district established the first batch of cadres going south from the East China Bureau, and deployed them to the Wangang village, Yuta County, the party school of the East China Bureau. In mid-January 1949, the East China Bureau Party School held an opening ceremony in Wangang village, and provided short-term training for about 3,000 cadres who had arrived earlier, which greatly promoted the mobilization of cadres to go south. On February 3, 1949, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China issued the instructions of the Central Committee on the military situation and preparations for cadres to cross the Yangtze River according to the needs of the situation in the War of Liberation. We should do it immediately, and be on standby in Suzhou at the end of February. 7. As a result, 15,000 southward cadres from various strategic areas deployed by the East China Bureau successively gathered in Linkheng, now Suishan, Shandong, and in accordance with the instructions of the East China Military Region Headquarters and the Political Department, it was unified and reorganized into the Southeast China Cadre Column. After all the cadres going south arrived in Linkheng, as students of the Party School of the East China Bureau, they conducted intensive training and study. The main content of the study is resolution of the second plenary session of the 7th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, instructions of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China on approving the instructions of the East China Bureau on taking over the cities in the south of the Yangtze River, instructions of the East China Bureau on taking over the cities in the south of the Yangtze River, the announcement of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, 8. Chapters of the Convention, instructions of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China on accepting bureaucratic capitalist enterprises. Instructions of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China on policies for the liberal bourgeoisie and enlightened gentlemen and other documents and resolutions. Through the study and training in Linkheng, the ideological foundation was laid for the East China Downward Cadre Column to successfully take over various tasks in the newly liberated areas of the south. In addition, since the formation of the Southeast China Cadre Column is based on the overall system of districts, prefectures, and counties, for unified management, the Southeast China Cadre Column will all wear military uniforms and the badge of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Compiled and perfected the management work in the organization. Afterwards, the Southeast China Cadre Column went to the liberated areas in the south to support the consolidation and construction of the regime. For the historical contribution of the column of cadres going south. Cadres going south was a significant strategic decision implemented by the CCP during the War of Liberation, and it carried the indelible historical feats of the cadres going south column in the process of national liberation. The situations and work tasks faced by the columns of cadres going south in each batch are different, and even the specific tasks of the columns of cadres going south in the same batch are also different. Among the first batch of cadres going south under the guidance of the Party Central Committee's decision, the column of cadres going south in East China, for example, some cadres went south in advance because they accompanied the army to raise food. The cadres were assigned to Zhejiang to take over the work. Some cadres from the 2nd and 3rd detachments of the Southeast China Cadre Column took over Shanghai and established the East China People's Revolutionary University, while the 4th East China Cadre Column was assigned to Suzhou, South China, to carry out the work of building a new regime. However, the column of cadres going south undoubtedly played a pivotal role in various tasks such as raising food with the army, land reform before support, or in urban takeover, suppression of bandits and hegemony, economic development, etc. to defend the revolutionary regime and maintain social stability. Since the column of cadres going south has been studied and trained in political thought and organization, they entered various regions in the south to carry out various takeover tasks, and they all carried out in an orderly manner. For example, during the takeover work in Shanghai in 1949, the Southern Cadres Column first conducted training in Danyang to formulate a takeover plan. On May 28, the ceremony of taking over the KMT city government was simply held, and the Shanghai Municipal Committee of the Communist Party of China and the Takeover Committee began to work. By June 2, In just a few days, the police, party affairs, administration, and other departments and units under the Kuomintang regime in Shanghai were successfully taken over by the CCP. The takeover of the entire Shanghai government is efficient and steady. The society is stable, the hearts of the people are stable, shops are open as usual, factories have resumed work, water and electricity have not been stopped, and people's lives have not been seriously affected. At that time, many hostile elements arrogantly clamored, the Communist Party can defeat Shanghai, but cannot control Shanghai, and the prophecy was quickly shattered. The historical feats of the Southern Cadres column were not only reflected in the period of the Liberation War, but also in the period of the construction of the new regime. The column of cadres going south integrated with the local people in the south and worked selflessly. They have made great historical contributions to the consolidation and construction of the new regime in the south, especially in the southwest region. In Hunan alone, from July 1949 to June 1950, nearly 15,000 party members and cadres and members of the Communist Youth League from Shandong, Shaanxi, Henan, Hebei, Beijing, Tianjin, and northeast and other old liberated areas came from various places in the north. The liberated areas went south into Hunan. From the north to the south, the transportation is inconvenient, and it has been rolled for thousands of miles. After going through hardships, some cadres may die due to attacks by stragglers and bandits, and die before leaving the army. After entering Hunan, the column of cadres going south faced many inconveniences of language barriers and different environments. However, with their firm revolutionary belief and will, the column of cadres going south worked hard and made remarkable historical feats in the takeover and construction work in Hunan. At the beginning of entering Hunan, the Southern Cadres column was sent to various places to take over and build a government. Cleaning up bandits and anti-traves and consolidating the regime became the top priority. The situation in Sangxiang, especially in western Hunan, is complicated, and bandits are like hares. Many cadres sacrificed their precious lives in the suppression of bandits. At the same time, the Southern Cadres column quickly carried out work such as raising food and supporting supplies, land reform, training cadres, and resuming production, which consolidated the nascent revolutionary regime and won the heartfelt support and trust of the people of Hunan. After the situation stabilized, the Southern Cadres column took Hunan as their second hometown, dedicating their precious youth and all their hard work and wisdom to the land of Sangxiang and Sishui. The governance of Dongting Lake in the 1950s, hundreds of large and medium-sized water conservancy and hydropower projects, and large-scale steel industry construction in the 1960s, the construction of the third line of the Hunan-Guizhou and Zhelia railways in the 1970s, and the reform and opening up of Hunan since the 1980s, etc., all embody going south. The wisdom of the cadre column contains their hard work, sweat, and selfless dedication. 10. Even now, there are still some cadres going south who still insist on their posts and play residual he for the construction of the motherland.